What's going on and what's going on, everybody? It is the Only Sports Podcast. That's right, the Only Sports Podcast. I'm Will. That's Casino over there.
How's it going over there?
How we doing today, Casino?
See, I beat you to the punch again. I'm doing good, man. Tired. Did a day trip to Utah yesterday. Got back into town, and instead of me, and this is running off of and I'm not joking, no hours of sleep outside of maybe an hour and a half in the truck ride up there. But yeah, it's been pretty good because I had to work, and then we just hit the road, did what we needed to do up at the family cabin, and then instead of coming home and going to sleep, I went out again. So
Yeah.
just running on fumes because I decided to do it. But it was nice. It was a good trip. My daughter had fun. She did the day trip with us. She hasn't been up in a while. So gave my wife some time since she had the day off yesterday, which thank you, Veterans Day. Appreciate everything. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I got a haircut this morning.
It looks good. You got the beard done too. I'm pulling the Andrew Luck neck beard. You look trimmed. You look sharp.
Yeah.
Shannon Sharp.
Thank you so much. If only I can get this light to not be so aggressive. That looks better. But I got a haircut, and then my son is now officially my 12-year-old is now the official quarterback of his flag football team. So that's pretty cool. He keeps being like, I want to tackle, but then can throw the ball insanely well, and he's insanely accurate. And I was just like, trust me, you don't want to tackle if you can play quarterback.
Quarterback, dude.
So I'm trying to inception him into liking quarterbacking by thinking it's his idea to be quarterback.
Haven't watched that documentary on Netflix.
Oh, that's true. And so far, you know what? I will say it is working. I am
just show him Giselle.
Yeah. I'm constantly calling him because his name's Brody. So I'm constantly calling him Brady. And then I go, oh, I'm sorry. I mean Brody. And then
that's funny.
It's working. But Casino, we have so much to do today. Before we get into the main talking point, this is big news. NFL picks update. I had to start the show with this, Casino.
Ugh.
So you correctly got a blowout of the week, and you got 9 picks correctly. So that's pretty good.
I felt like I did way worse.
So did I.
Because there were so many close games that I was paying attention to that I know that I lost. I'm like, shit.
Yeah, so you got 9 games, and you got extra point for blowout of the week because you picked Eagles over Cowboys. So well done. So you are now at 93 on the season in terms of picks. Now, Daddy over here, I'm pointing to myself. I got 13 picks right because I got. You won all
the close games.
Yes, and I got upset of the week where I picked Cardinals, so 2 points on that bad boy. And then I also guessed correctly what the best game of the week was, which was clearly Ravens
what did I say?
You said best games was going to be Commander Steelers.
Oh, and?
Would you say that was the best game?
I think they go hand in hand.
No.
Are you kidding me? They came down to the last place. Like that was
but that doesn't make it a good game. But so did Ravens Bengals was 35-34, and it came down to the final 2-point conversion.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And with that, the comeback of the year.
I mean, I wasn't wrong. Okay, I wasn't wrong. That there was just another better game. Like that was still a really good game. Okay.
It's best, not better, Casino. Best. But you know what? Actually, I'll even scrap that as to no.
And it was 1 point, man. It was a 1-point game for both games. Like, come on, it's outstanding.
Okay, fine. Then still don't call it a comeback because I got 13 right. You got 9 right. We are now tied at 93.
Gotcha. So no, if you want to give yourself the 1, fine. I don't care. I'll beat you this week. That's fine. But you can't say that. The one was better than the other when they were both back and forth juggernaut of games. Like we did pick the best 2 games hands down, and they were the 2 best games. They were so good.
I would maybe throw 49ers Buccaneers in there in terms of like Or actually, we might both be wrong. It might have been Broncos Chiefs as the best game. I mean, we didn't like the results, but that was the one that is kind of like the game that got
There was a
everyone
lot of good
talking.
games this week. There was a lot of good. I mean, and then you had the Panthers walk it off in OT in Germany. Yeah, like very. This was a fun week. I enjoyed this week of football.
You know what? Let's just hop right into it, Casino.
Hippity hoppity.
So now, in order to just break it down to where we can do it easier and talk about it, we are introducing a new segment here, Casino, called the Tuesday Talking Points. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It is what from the weekend of sports. It'll be sports in the future. This weekend, it's just football. So, and it's just NFL because college football, I mean, we'll briefly talk about after this, but for the Tuesday Talking Points Casino, we're going to go 5-1. What was the, and obviously one being the most talked about, five being kind of ones where we could just squeeze all the games into here. So this is how we're now going to start talking about all the games on this podcast. So first up, let's go to our number 5, which is the Jets and Bears are done. And both you and I were right because
That's
this,
right.
and let's first talk about your team not only beating the Bears, I would dare say
Dude,
dominating them.
it was they it was 9 sacks. So, I mean, you gotta at this point, you can't just blame yes, they were missing a lot of their offensive linemen, there was injuries for the or, yeah, their offensive linemen, but 9 sacks, you got Caleb Williams has to take some sort of the blame on that. Like,
Yeah.
you have to get rid of the ball. You have to get rid of the ball. Be more aloof. Whatever you need to do, be quicker. Be quicker. That's not 9 sacks is insane. That Bears defense only scored 3 points all game. That's rough. I mean, I didn't expect it. I did not expect. I mean, the Patriots didn't look great. One thing I do know though is I still like Drake. Drake May. I think he's a good quarterback. Yes, he had an interception, but I don't really think that was too bad of an interception. Um, yeah, no, good game. I love it.
Yeah. And
Defense
so
8.
now the discussion needs to shift to Caleb Williams. And I said it was Jets and Bears are done, and we were right because we called this at the beginning of the season where we said there's no, you had legitimate people on
Mhm.
like sports talk media just being like, the Bears and Jets is a realistic Super Bowl matchup. Like that was real talking points where they were like, market one of, if not both these teams, being the Bears and the Jets, are going to be in the Super Bowl, all this kind of stuff. And both you and I, when we were doing the season previews, were like, what is everyone seeing about this Bears team and about this Jets team
Yeah,
that we are
collectively
not
they
seeing?
have 7 wins.
Yeah, right now at 7 wins, depending on the division they would be in, they would be struggling to get into the playoffs if we combine their record. So individually, and then again, you look at the Bears right now, the 3 wins they got were against the Rams, Panthers, and Jaguars in week 4, 5, and
Yeah.
6. And those 3 wins were when all three of those teams had the 32nd, 31st, and I believe like 29th worst defense in the league. So at the time they played those 3 teams, they had the 3 worst defenses that they got wins against. And then the fluke win they got in week 1, where Will Levis basically just threw the game
Yeah.
literally away to
Well,
them.
I mean, they did, and this is weird, that it took this long. They did fire, Shane Waldron, finally their
Yes.
offensive coordinator, but I was listening to the radio today, Colin Coward, and they made a really good point. Um, J Mac and Colin, it was during his J Mac's like news session, was talking about why did it take this long for them to fire Shane Waldron? Like, you do that Sunday night, you do that Monday morning, you do not do that. You do not do that
Halfway
today.
into the week. Yeah.
Yeah, because
That's
you have a game
weird.
to plan for.
Yeah. And now all of a sudden, you don't hear the talk where it's like, oh, remember how everybody was touting this was the best what is it, set up for a rookie quarterback in the history of the NFL. Now, all of a sudden, that talking point has just gone away because it's like, oh, actually, the coaching's bad and the coordinators are bad and the
So I want to
owner's
ask. I want
bad.
to ask you this: do you think that Matt Eberflus should have been the coach of the Bears? Should have been fired as well?
Yeah, I think I said I think he should have been fired before the season even started. I think they should have
Yeah,
got a new coach in there. It's weird to
totally.
bring like this generational quarterback in that they're like, we haven't seen anybody like this since Andrew Luck and all the other comps, Elway, blah blah blah. And then this once in a lifetime coach and then it's like, "Oh yeah, but we're going to have our bad coach who got us the number 1 pick be his head coach." And it's like,
Yeah,
what has he done to he's never done anything in this league as a head coach to warrant like that kind of hype. And again,
gotcha.
only
Totally.
with the Eagles from last year, it really made me realize like how important coaching is because with the same roster of last year, they had the 30th ranked defense. This year they have a top 5 defense with these same exact pieces. It's just coaching. Like it's like you get
Yeah.
somebody, but what my question to you is the passing game coordinator has been promoted to offensive coordinator. Do you think that does anything to
No, nothing.
garner wins? I also don't understand the
No,
interim head
I
coach.
think there's a you've seen it with all their quarterback. This Bears team has not been good since Mike Ditka, and that front office has issues. It is not. I mean, you had Justin Fields, you had Mick Trubisky. Things didn't work out, but at some point, like Caleb Williams, he's supposed to be the guy, and you still can't get it right with him. Like
Yeah.
there's something going on in this front office, and I think they just need a clean house. But
Yeah.
with that being said, so let's say go over to the Jets. Total opposite. I like their organization. I think what they've been doing lately has been all right, but it is 100% the quarterback. It is 100% Aaron Rodgers in my view of what's wrong with that team.
Also, wait a second here. We might have breaking news, Casino, because I did not realize this. Did the Cardinals blow out the Jets more than the Eagles blew out the Cowboys? I'm scanning. 34-6. No. 31-6. Okay. So that is still blowout of the week. You almost lost your extra point.
Thank you.
But no. So when it comes to Cardinals and Jets, I agree with you that I think what is it? Aaron Rodgers basically cost them the game by doing what we've said has been an issue with Aaron Rodgers for minimum the last 5 years, which is he is too cautious with the football and he must be the biggest fan of his like touchdown to interception ratio because he doesn't take risk when he throws the football, which is good on one hand, but on the other hand, it's like not taking risk also means he doesn't throw the ball deep. He doesn't ever try to buy
I'm
time
so
in the
glad they got
pocket.
Devontae Adams over there.
Yeah, so far in this game, Devontae Adams was targeted 13 times. 13 times, and he only caught 6 balls for 31 yards, no touchdowns. So against the Cardinals, which again, Cardinals are now 6-4 and leading the NFC West. So it's not like they lost to, or it's not like they got blown out by a bad team. They got blown out by a good team, but they also got blown out by a team that's defense isn't anything crazy. Like it's not, and they still offensively they could only get to 207 yards again against the Jets or against the Cardinals defense that is not, it's like middle of the road. It's not good, it's not great. I'll look it up right now, but yeah, when it comes to the Jets, Casino, more so than the Bears, because the Bears, at least it's like they could get a new coaching staff in here and turn this thing around in a season. With the Jets, it's like, what do you do with a 40 plus year old quarterback and then basically all your good players on contracts that either
Are
expire?
just rotting away.
Yeah, like this is what do they do?
They got to get rid of him. They need to move off him. There was a really funny thing that one of my one of my Patriot buddies sent me, and you being a fan of The Office, it's a picture of, you remember when Michael was shaking hands with his old boss and he had the mullet and everything?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So here, I got it pulled up, but for the viewers that were just listening, so it's that, and it's highest expectations in 25 years, lowest expectations in 25 years, and they're both 3-7. It is, it is spot on. It's so spot on. Like, this is exactly what I thought the Patriots would be this year. Still a bad team, figuring things out. You know, start accumulating space for draft picks and cap space and all that jazz, and find out if you have a quarterback with Drake May. We're doing all those things, and everything's getting slightly better. Yes, Romeo's, the whole soft comment didn't look good, but the team has gotten better, right? As of late, they look a little bit better. But the Jets, they just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And they have legitimately lost 3 games on Aaron Rodgers alone because he's not taking the risks. So, yep.
Yeah.
Done with.
But yeah, when it comes to the Jets, I believe it's something like $40 million it would be in dead cap to get rid of Aaron Rodgers. Sometimes you just have to eat bad contracts. Like, you can't again, you have Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson on your team, and then Breece Hall as your running back. Those are 3 all-pro offensive weapons
Send them to
that
the Patriots. I'll take them.
yeah, that, like you just said, any team in the league, if they were on free agency, would basically try to sign all 3 of those guys. Like, but now we move on, Casino, to number 4, which is, we wanted to lump a bunch of teams in here, and the perfect way to do that is to do the old contenders or pretenders talk. And we first start with the 49ers and the Broncos. The 49ers end up winning
You
23
mean
to
49ers
20.
and Bucks?
Or sorry, yeah, 49ers and Buccaneers. The San Francisco 49ers end up winning 23 to 20. The San Fran is now 5-4. Buccaneers are now 4-6. Now, obviously, we've talked about the Buccaneers. They've been hit by the injury bug, but still have been playing, I mean, rock solid against both the 49ers and Chiefs since those injuries happened. So when it comes to the
That's
Buccaneers
why I
and
picked.
40,
That's why I thought the Bucks were going to pull this off, and
I
they
mean,
almost did.
yeah, they almost did. But when you look at these 2 teams, Casino, do you see either of them in the playoffs, or both of them missing the playoffs?
I think the Bucks are going to miss the playoffs, regardless how well they are playing and Baker's playing this year. I think just missing Mike Evans and Godwin is going to be just too much for that team to overcome, especially being now behind the 8 ball with only 4 wins. But the Niners, I think now that they got some of their pieces back, I think they did enough. I think Purdy did enough to keep them in the hunt, basically keeping them around to get McCaffrey back. And we're going to get him rolling once he starts picking up speed, which I think he will. So I think the Niners can make make the playoffs, and I think the Bucks are going to miss the playoffs barely. Just because no matter how well the Bucks are playing, that was kind of a must win for them. But I think the Niners are going to end up making the playoffs.
Yeah. And this was kind of the game for, I would say, game for both of them, of if you get maybe the 7th and final playoff wildcard spot, this would be where you need to do it, because at this point, if Bucks won that game, they would have been keeping pace with the Atlanta Falcons, where they would have been 5-5, a game back of the Falcons, a game and a half, I believe, because they lost to them. But the 49ers, if they would have lost this game, they would have been 4-5, and then 2 games behind the Cardinals, a team they also lost to. So it really seems like, especially with the NFC North potentially taking 2 wildcard spots, and then one of the NFC East teams being either the Eagles or Commanders winning that division, and then the other one taking the last wildcard spot, it really does feel like the wild card spots are already locked up in the NFC. It's going to be some combination of Eagles, Commanders, Lions, Vikings, Packers, who, obviously whoever doesn't win those divisions. So then you really have to win your division to get in for if you're in the NFC South or NFC West. And NFC South and NFC West are not led by either the 49ers or the Buccaneers. So I have no faith in the Cardinals whatsoever. So I think if San Francisco just all of a sudden goes on a roll and wins, a bunch of their next upcoming games, I don't have faith in the Cardinals to keep pace with them. But if we look at the 49ers upcoming schedule, they play, let's see, they have Seahawks next week, which will be, an in divisional game, so anything can happen in there. But then they go Green Bay, Bills back to back. Then they go Bears, Rams, Dolphins. So those are three very winnable games right there, obviously. But then they end the season Detroit and then week 18 with Arizona, which who knows? Week 18 very well could be win and you're in, right? Lose and you miss the playoffs entirely. So I think this 49ers, week 17, 49ers Lions is going to be great. But all the other games, obviously against the Bills and Packers, those are going to be hard ones because both of them are in Green Bay and are in Buffalo Bills Stadium. So it's not like their schedule is a gimme when it comes to the 49ers. Now, when you look at the Bucks, I do think this is just bad timing with injuries. Any injuries are bad, but especially where you're right in the thick of it and then you kind of lose almost all your offensive weapons. Now, again, Baker is still playing well, but in this game alone, he just had over 100. He had 116 yards passing. So you can't tell me
Sorry,
that
I
was
had to step away there. My daughter had to use the restroom. Need help.
no problem. But yeah, you can't say that Baker Mayfield only having 116 yards passing in this game wasn't due to him missing his top 3 targets.
Yeah,
Like
all day.
that's what it's going to come back to haunt him. But all right, Casino. Next game we are going to talk about is the Monday night game. Dolphins at Rams last night. Dare I say this was a barn burner, and we saw the Rams basically give the game away 5 separate times to the Dolphins, and then the Dolphins failed to capitalize on it every time except the time that led them to winning the game, basically.
Right.
Like, this was an ugly game. It was a weird game, but still, Miami is now 3-6, and the Los Angeles Rams are 4-5. I think what I just said about the Niners can be associated with the Rams, which is in the NFC, you need to win the NFC South or NFC West to get into the playoffs because the wild card spots are coming from the NFC North and NFC
Oh
East.
yeah. Like as of right now, you have Minnesota, Washington, and Green Bay filling in all three of those wild card spots.
So that begs the question: Dolphins and Rams, contenders or pretenders, Casino?
Dolphins or Rams? Rams, I think pretenders, honestly. I think so. But they have the best shot of making, I think, the playoffs between those two teams. They're both teams are 2 games out of making a playoff spot to make the number 7. However, Miami has to go through both Indy and Cincy. Cincy, I think, has a better shot of making it, and then you have to compete with Denver and the Chargers. Colts, I think they're going to start to fiddle out there. I just don't know what they are anymore. But with Tua back, the Dolphins look good. Like, could they be interesting to watch down the line? Yes, but I think there will be a flip flop for Cincy and Denver. Personally, I think Cincy will get that last spot. I think the Chargers will stay in, and Baltimore as well. So, there's a few teams left in the hunt technically, but I think being 2 games out is going to be a little too much at this stage of the game. When you have teams that are already in the wild card, that are probably going to lose about the same amount of games as you are, and then the teams that are right above you in the hunt, they're better than you. So
yeah, when you look, I think the Rams miss it sadly, just because either the Cardinals or 49ers I see coming out of the West, and then everybody else in that division just missing the playoffs because of NFC North and NFC East teams being so far
Yeah,
ahead of
I
them.
think the Niners will end up coming back and winning this division, and then Arizona will get one of the wild cards, um, or be I don't know, man. That's a pretty stacked Minnesota, Washington, and Green Bay are pretty stacked.
Yeah. But then when you look at the Dolphins, I mean, their next two games are Raiders Patriots, which are games they both should win.
They have the easiest schedule remaining, the Dolphins do.
Yes. So
That
that gets them.
which is gonna make them interesting to watch down the stretch.
Yeah. And then it really comes down to potentially week 16, where it's 49ers Dolphins. Loser of that game might be knocked out of the playoffs.
Yeah,
If
that's
that
gonna be a good one.
becomes, yeah, if that becomes 49ers trying to keep pace with the Cardinals and then Dolphins trying to snag
Because
that
Dolphins
last
yeah,
wild
because
card.
if Dolphins go on a stretch here, so they got the Raiders, New England, they'll win. At Green Bay, I think they'll lose. They'll beat the Jets. Just my thoughts. Houston, I don't know. Yeah, and then Cleveland Jets. Like they've got some potential to score some games here. And then exactly playing San Francisco, they are playing the team that is going to have to they're going to have to fight to get into the wild card.
Yeah. So I think we're both saying Rams are pretenders just because of the division and how the playoff spots are lining up this year. But Dolphins, potential contender. Potential contender. Now let's move over to the weirdest game, in my opinion, of the weekend, which was Minnesota Jacksonville, which you look at this game and it should have been, I mean, add 21 points to Minnesota's score, and this would have been blowout of the week. Unfortunately, Sam Darnold decided to throw all three of his interceptions in this game in the red zone. And I mean, two of them were abysmal, but the Minnesota Vikings still win 12-7 to go to 7-2. Jacksonville falls to 2-8. So obviously Jacksonville is missing the playoffs, but when it comes to the Vikings,
Yeah,
contender
you
or pretender?
no, they're still contenders. You take those 3 interceptions, like, you saw it with Goff. Like, he had 5 we'll get to that, but 3 interceptions on the goal line, yeah, that's not great at all, but you were still, 24 for 38. You hit those 3 touchdowns right there, you're 27 for 38 with 3 touchdowns
Yeah.
with 250 yards. Like, that's really good, and that's a really good day. So, that's just a game. They still won. Good teams find ways to win. Their defense had to step up because their offense was struggling on the goal line, and that works. That works. That's what makes you a good team. Is you can struggle offensively. You can make 3 turnovers at the goal line and still win out a game. You're a contender. You're a
Yeah.
contender.
Vikings also have the 11th best defense in the league, and that basically saved them in this game with how. But then again, much like Casino was saying, you score those touchdowns, and everybody looks at your offensive output much differently. The time of possession in this game, Minnesota held the ball for 42 minutes of it. Jacksonville held it for almost 18 minutes. So again,
Wow.
long sustained drives that the Vikings were just going up and down the field. They had over 400 yards of total
Pretender or
offense.
contenders all day.
Yeah.
Contender all day.
And again, like Casino said, and you know what? Let's just segue right over to Dolphins Texans right here. Or wait, no, I have them in a different, we have them in a different spot.
Yeah.
But when we talk about the Lions, it's kind of the same as this game. Like offense struggling, defense keeps them in it, and then good teams find ways to win. But the team that did not find a way to win, Casino, was the Falcons. When they went to the Saints, they lose 20-17, also costing me my parlay card. So how dare you, Saints? Or how dare you? Yeah, Saints and Falcons. But Falcons are 6-4. New Orleans is 3-7. So obviously the Saints are out of it. But when it comes to the Falcons, Casino, we made our pledge like, up, we're right back on the bandwagon of they're going to run away with it next or this division, and then they lose. So
But they're
Tampa's,
still gonna win this division.
Yeah.
They're still going to win this division. They are still going to be sitting, like I told you, they're going to sit at the 4 seed. I guarantee you. They're not they're going to currently they're at the 3. They are going to finish off at the 4 seed. It is what it is. Cuz they are a decent team, but it's just they're in a bad conference. Yeah, they're in a bad conference, and you know what? I'm still going to say they're they're kind of a contender. They're
They're
kind
I
of,
mean,
and the
they're
reason,
basically default contender
yeah,
because of
default
their
contender.
division. Yeah.
Yes, default contender, but you've also got to think that you see it all the time when, and we should have looked into this a little bit more when we were making our picks, is when teams fire coaches or players leave or whatnot, there's always going to be a morale,
Yep.
and that's what I feel like happened.
Yeah, like the morale boost, and then you have the head coach before the game talking about how he didn't think the day would go well because he clogged the toilet first thing in the morning. So with that kind of energy in the building, how are you going to lose that game, Casino? You're not. You're going to win
That's
20 to
funny.
17. But yeah, so Falcons contenders, but I think they'll
Contenders by
be.
default.
Yes, and they'll probably be one of the teams that the other teams kind of want to play the most, right? Like if
Yeah,
it was
definitely.
Falcons versus either Eagles, Commanders, what, Vikings or
Well,
Packers.
right now they would be playing Washington, and Washington would be licking their chops.
Yeah. But now let's move on to our last contender pretender talk, and that is with the Titans at the Chargers. Again, we're just talking about Chargers because Titans are 2-7. But after this game, Chargers 6-3, and maybe the most sneaky good team that no one talks about.
Oh, by far, definitely. That's why I was saying I like Justin Herbert. This was a call that, I said they were going to win this game. I'm going to go back over to this side. Um, they're sitting at 6-3, and nobody's talked about them. No, not a single person is out there talking about this team. Every time I listen to a show on the radio or watch it on TV, they might say, "Oh, Harbaugh's doing okay, cool," and then they swing back to another team. They barely
Yeah.
talk about this team, and I really like this. Harbaugh, he just fits this team, and I think he was waiting. Yes, he won the national championship, but this was a perfect time for him to leave college because he got onto a team that has an established quarterback.
Yeah.
A quarterback that a lot of people were like, about. I've always kind of liked him. You never cared for him.
Who? Harbaugh
Uh, no,
or Herbert? No,
Herbert.
I just think he's overrated.
Well,
I
I
just
don't
think
think,
he's
and
overrated.
see, that was my argument with you for the longest time, was I don't think he was overrated. I just don't think that he had the right coaching and management in that organization. And look what happened. They they all get out the door, they go away. You bring an established coach, a coach that has been there before and has gone to the show. So I'm really happy with this team moving forward. And yeah, they're sneaky good. They are sneaky, sneaky good.
Yeah, and he has 11 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. So he's having a very efficient season. It's not again, you even look at his rating in this game, it's 14 of 18,
Mhm.
164 yards, 1 touchdown. It's not blowing anybody's socks off, but it's very efficient, which is different than what we've seen in the past where he was having games that were blowing the socks off the place, but they were still losing because their defense was
Yeah.
abysmal.
I think they'll comfortably finish as a wild card. Obviously, they're not gonna win the division. That's going to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But I think they're comfortably in a wild card spot, and they will have to shoot themselves in their foot to not be able to make the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, I would take them as probably the 6th seed in the wild card, maybe right
And
behind
then
either Pittsburgh or Ravens,
and
and
that's what I'm
then
saying. And then it's either gonna be Cincy or Denver making, or if Miami
or
can win
Miami.
or can
Yeah,
win some games here. Yeah.
agreed, agreed. We agree on that one. Now let's move on to our number 3 casino, which is cracked armor question mark, and we just talked about them. The Lions played the Texans on Sunday Night Football in a weird game. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Goff throws 5 interceptions. Somehow they still win this game. What did you see from the Lions in this game that would make you think they're, much like what we said about the Texans, where they're just a little more vulnerable than we thought they were?
I just think they were able to pull off a good game. They stepped up when they needed to step up, and that that is the signs of a great team. Not even a good team, a great team. The fact that you can throw 5 interceptions, but you never were like, "We're out of this game." You were
Yeah.
down, and you were never like, "Ah, we're out of this game," because you know what you have. You know what you have, and you are capable of doing comebacks. You are capable of having the worst game. I don't think he'll ever throw 5 interceptions ever again. In his career. I mean, that's very rare. So I'm really impressed with what he did, man.
Yeah, he had thrown 4 interceptions, in the first 3 weeks of the season, hadn't thrown an interception since, and then had 5 interceptions in week
So
10.
this was a great one.
So,
So Goff became just the third quarterback in the last 30 years to win a game with throwing at least 5 interceptions. Matt Ryan did it in 2012 against the Cards, and then Tony Romo did it back in '07 against the Bills.
that's a crazy stat. That's
And one of
crazy.
my, did you see what Ryan Fitzpatrick said?
I did not.
Um, he because he threw back when did he do it? In 2016, Ryan Fitzpatrick threw 6 interceptions in a game, and when it was getting close to that point of catching his record, um, he made a comment about like how he threw 6 interceptions in a game, and we're getting close to that record, and like he like left the building, something like that. But it was really funny. But
That is the record, 6 interceptions in a game?
I'll look that up right now, but I was
I
just making a
also
point over to his
I
comment.
also can't believe Jameis has never had a 5 interception game, or maybe he has, but they just didn't win it, so it doesn't count. But
Dear Lord.
what
Take a guess on how many interceptions a quarterback has thrown in a game.
is it old? Is it an old record?
Let's see here. Yes.
I'm gonna guess 11.
Nope.
What is it?
It's 8. But yeah, apparently, um, the record with most interceptions thrown in a game belongs to Jim Hardy, the Chicago Cardinals. The Chicago Cardinals quarterback managed to throw 8 of them to Philadelphia Eagles in September 24th, 1950.
And did they win that game or lose that game, or does it even say?
It doesn't say. I would assume they lost that game.
Yeah, damn right they did, playing those, you said 1920s?
That's a 1950.
Playing the 1950s Eagles, everybody lost to them. So when we talk about these two teams, Casino, I think almost with the Texans, we basically have to do what we did with the Falcons and say by default, they are winning that division and just going to the playoffs. So they're contenders, but as we've been saying for a month and a half on this podcast, I don't think they'll do anything in the playoffs because something seems off with them.
Oh yeah, no, they lost 45-7 in that game.
Yeah, because again, 1950s Eagles. Yeah,
Well,
that's
he just
what you do.
he threw 12 passes and he got eight of them intercepted.
That might be a bigger record. Like only completing 4 passes while throwing 8
That's pretty great.
interceptions. That's crazy. But then Texans will win their division basically because I don't think either of us believe in the Colts, especially
No,
after
not at all.
the Flacco renaissance has died off. But when it comes to the Lions, they again win this game, but in the division they're playing in, they're obviously getting into the playoffs regardless, but they're still only 1 game behind the Vikings, which is insane to be an 8-1 team and only be ahead in your division by 1 game. Like, but again,
That's a stacked
Lions are
division. Every single team's in the playoffs right now if they started today.
yeah. And well, except for the Bears. But again, Bears are
Oh,
done.
you're right. Yeah, except for the Bears.
But when it comes to the Lions and their upcoming schedule, Casino, if we want to dive into that, they play Jacksonville next week, which they should annihilate. Then they play the Colts, who they also should annihilate. Then they play the Bears, who they also should annihilate. So they'll have 3 games in a row where they're going to be heavy favorites. And then they finish Packers, Bills, Bears again, 49ers, and then Vikings week 18.
It's going to be
So
that's going to get them ready for the playoffs. That's going to
yeah,
get them ready to contend for the Super Bowl.
yeah,
I think
because
that only favors them.
well, also the weird thing with the Lions is obviously the Lions and Cowboys always have to have the Thanksgiving games. So the Lions play 2 Thursday games in a row. So they play week 13 on Thanksgiving against the Bears, and then they play the Thursday night game after that the next week at where Green Bay comes to them. So I guess good thing is in both those Thursday night games, they're home, so they don't have to worry about travel. But yeah, then they go to Buffalo, or no, they play Buffalo at home, and then they go to 49ers and then finish the season playing the Vikings at home. So all their hard games except the 49ers, with we'll see how they go, are all at home. So that should help them immensely, especially getting this big win against the Texans. So obviously the Lions are still Casino Super Bowl pick.
Oh yeah, they were mine to win. Who did you pick to win it? You picked the Chiefs, right?
No, I said Eagles, Chiefs, and Eagles win it.
That's right.
So both of our Super Bowl matchups are still very much in play.
And you know what? The Eagles have moved up in my power rank. We'll
Ooh.
get to that Thursday.
Yeah, buddy. But let's move on to the next game where we want to talk about the cracked armor of it all. These are the good teams that have shown us just a little bit of flaw. And that is, we go all the way back to, speaking of Thursday, the Thursday night game between the Bengals and Ravens, which this game ends up being, in my opinion, best game of the week. But it ends up being,
but it has controversy. Tons of controversy.
35-34, the Ravens hang on and survive a late surge by the Bengals, who the Bengals almost survived a late surge by the Baltimore Ravens, who scored 21 points in the fourth quarter to win this game 35-34. Very similar to the Lions. So I feel like if it is your Super Bowl pick of Lions Ravens, we'll come back to week 10 and be like, maybe neither of them get to the Super Bowl if either of them lose that game.
That's a good point. But you know what? I think the Ravens should have lost that game.
Yeah. Well,
so how many roughing the passer calls should there have been called? They were smoking Joe Burrow in the face mask. Not just like touching his face mask. They were annihilating his face mask. And he wasn't getting any calls.
And still, even with that, he goes 34 for 56, 428 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
And they lose.
And they lost because, again, the Ravens, on the other hand, Lamar Jackson goes 25 for 33, 290, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. So 2 great quarterbacks.
I mean, the last time I remember a quarterback that played almost a flawless game and then still lost was Tom Brady against your Eagles.
Yeah. And glad he lost that. Well, also, it's like this is, I think, the third or fourth week in a row. I think it's the third week in a row where Lamar Jackson finishes the game with a perfect passer rating, which is just insane. And also,
it's crazy they have 3 losses on the season and almost 4.
I know. It's also crazy that Joe Burrow has 24 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, over like 65% completion percentage, and he is still the quarterback of a team that's 4-6.
I think they're going to make the playoffs. And if they make the playoffs, I don't care how bad their defense is. I would be scared as hell to play that team. I would be so scared to go up against Joey B.
Let's look at the Bengals defense. I know Ravens are 27th in the league. Bengals have a slightly better defense at 23rd in the league. So as bad as the Ravens defense is,
yeah, but the Ravens got a great run defense.
Yeah. Oh, we did that where it was like you can pass against them, which this game proved it because Joe Burrow threw 428 yards, but
horrible secondary.
Yeah, but you couldn't really run against them because they held them under 50 yards rushing. So, yeah. But this begs the question, Casino. I mean, we just talked about pretenders and contenders, and this is cracked armor. Do you expect both these teams to make the playoffs?
I do actually, but their armor is cracked because we definitely know where it is for the Ravens. It is on that secondary that
Yeah.
just really really bad. That's where their chink in the armor is, or their crack, whatever you want to call it. But unlike that, their secondary, the overall defense for the Bengals is like the Mariana fucking Trench. Like it is just there's holes everywhere in there. The fact that they are overall better just tells you how bad the Ravens secondary is.
Yeah. Well,
But
Ravens, yeah, still have number 1 rush defense and are 32nd in the league against the pass.
that's
So,
nuts.
they can't stop anybody passing, but you can't run on them. Bengals, however, have a worse defense on paper because they're 23rd against the pass and then 17th against the run.
Yeah,
So, you can either pass or run on
and
them, and
that's what you've seen all season.
yeah. So, I think,
They're
obviously, I
both
think
gonna
the
make the
Ravens.
playoffs, but I
Yeah.
mean, I would still be worried to play both of these teams because of their offensive prowess.
I think Ravens finish as the number 2 seed because again, they hold that tiebreaker over Buffalo. And so I think Ravens finish as the 2nd seed. I think Bengals barely miss the playoffs. I don't think the Bengals make it. I just don't think they can stop anybody and they're going to lose a lot of shootouts even if Burrow plays flawlessly like he did in this game. Also, we've said it a million times on here. He threw the ball 56 times. Like you're going to lose that game every time where you're throwing the ball almost 60 times. I would love to see a stat where it showed how often a team wins when their quarterback throws 55 plus passes because I bet they never win. Last team, and I just mentioned them, Casino Segu over to the Bills and Colts game. Buffalo wins 30-20 against the Colts. Scored 10 points in the first, second, and fourth quarters. This game was not nearly as close as the score indicates, even though Josh Allen had a rough day passing the ball, but he was who had an even rougher day was Joe Flacco, 26 of 35, 272, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. This was an ugly game to watch. I watched a lot of this game, and it was like anytime the Bills had any momentum, they would just turn the ball over. And yet they still somehow won.
Hmm. Sorry, I'm
So
pulling up that stat for you. What's your question?
my question is, how far can this Bills team at 8-2 go? And we've already both said Indianapolis Colts at 4-6 are missing the playoffs because I would take the Bengals and I think I would even take the Dolphins right now over the Colts as like a potential
Well, we
sleeper
both
wild
did.
card team.
We both did.
Yeah. So then our discussion is just on the Bills at 8-2. What do you think they finished the season at? You think they finished as the 2nd seed, the 3rd seed? What?
Um, I think they finished as the first seed.
No. I did the Sunday solo show and I said, I'm going to be a fucking idiot and I'm going to talk myself into picking the Bills against the Chiefs this coming week,
Oh,
but I don't want to do it.
I'm doing it.
You're
I
picking
am
the
doing it
Bills.
because they're going to win the tiebreaker. They're going to be with it. They're going to win the tiebreaker. They're going to be right there with them. So that would put them what, one game behind the Chiefs. I think the
No, I
Chiefs.
think no, they'd be
Well,
they
the
would be
Chiefs.
9 wins. The Bills haven't had their bye week yet.
Well, how many losses have they had? They have two though, right?
They have 2. Yes. Or
Right.
well, oh, you're right. They'd be the same, but the Chiefs would still no. How would that work? Because the Bills would be
It
9
goes by
and 1.
it goes by wins losses
Or
first.
no, the Bills would be 9 and 2, Chiefs would be 9 and 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh
So, but here's the thing. But I see the Chiefs losing a couple down the road here.
ooh, I mean, this is bold. I should have made a bold predictions counter. So walk me through this, Casino. How does
All
this Bills season
right.
finish?
All right. Well, first, let me tell you about the Chiefs here, right? I know that we got the Bills coming up. Or
No, we have the Chiefs coming up.
yeah, that got it. So I think the Chiefs will lose to Buffalo in Buffalo, right? The Chiefs still have to play the Chargers, and
Mhm.
we've talked about how much the Chargers is 6-3. They're a really good looking team. The Chiefs have to play the Texans, and guess what? The Texans, they can show that they can play, and they have the Steelers and the Broncos, and then the Raiders. I guess I know it's the Raiders, but the Chiefs almost already lost to the Raiders once this year, and the Broncos almost beat them. We'll talk about that shortly. So you have Broncos, Texans, Chargers, Bills, and Steelers. You're going to tell me that the Chiefs are going to win all of those games? No, definitely not. And so, with that being said, now let's go over to the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills. So the Buffalo, they do have the Niners, they have the Rams, they have the Lions, Patriots, Patriots twice, and Jets. So they finished their season with Patriots, Jets, Patriots. They'll win all three of those games. At least they should, right?
Yes.
And even though the Rams are a feisty team, I think the Bills will get that done. The Lions Bills will be a great game. I think the Niners will have trouble playing the Bills up in Buffalo after this Chiefs game, and because they have two road games, and those road games are going to be Rams and Patriots. Besides that, they're playing the rest of their season at home. So
Yeah.
if they beat the Chiefs and they're one game behind, I like who the Bills play much better than who the Chiefs have to play.
You make a compelling case, Casino. You do.
Oh,
I
and then they do have the Lions on the road as well. But I mean, again, you throw that one out, they'll lose. But I think the Chiefs will lose. I think the Chiefs will end up with 3 losses by the end of this season. And I know that's saying something because there's only 7 games left. I think they'll go 4-7 or
or
whatever it may
four and
be.
three. Yeah.
4-3 or 4-3 or whatever's left. Um, they've got some tough teams coming up who are playing really good football right now, and the Chiefs are not playing really good football. They got a great defense, but as the season goes on, what happens to good defenses? They start to tire out.
Hmm. Yeah, especially when you're playing again, basically playoff football every week, where it's a one-score game, it's physical, it's going back and forth.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then the Bills, I told you, they got 3 cupcakes at the end of their season. They get
yeah,
3 cupcakes at the end of the season. They got Patriots, Jets, Patriots. Like, you shouldn't
Whew.
lose those games.
Yeah. And yeah, Bills. Well, I mean, that all starts with Bills Chiefs next week, which we'll obviously talk about on Thursday. But I like the picture you're painting, Casino. You might have convinced me. But let's move on. Obviously, the Bills are contenders, and they'll be fighting for 1, 2, or the 3 seed throughout the entire season. But now let's move on to the number 2 talking point, which is we're talking about the NFC least and the NFC beast because it is two great teams, two really bad teams, and two of those teams played this week. Casino Eagles at Cowboys. Casino wins an extra point this week in our picks for blowout of the week because the Eagles absolutely annihilated the Cowboys 34-6. Philadelphia is now 7-2 with the Thursday night game obviously being against the Commanders, but I went through their schedule on Sunday, so I won't do it again. But all I'm saying is they have some tough games coming up that are on the road where they play the Ravens, they play obviously the Commanders, and then, but other than that, if they can just beat the Commanders once and then either beat Ravens or Steelers, Ravens on the road, which is a game I think they'll lose, and then Steelers at home, which is a game I think they win. This is potentially a 12-win team going into the playoffs.
Right. So quick, just to touch on, I don't know, I can't find the stat, but I just want to say this. This is just another reason why Tom Brady's the GOAT. Is out of 29 games where Brady threw for over 50 attempts, he won 19 of them.
Over
Which
20?
uh, 29 games played where he threw over 50 attempts, right? 29 games where he threw over 50 passes, and he won 19 of those games.
Jesus.
The next person is Warren Moon. He played 8 games and he won 5.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So And then you have like Dan Marino, Derek Carr, Matt Ryan, but those are all just a couple, that's it. Um, and here,
Oof.
and Peyton Manning, 17 games played, throwing over 50, and he only won 4 of those. So
Well, that also
the
kind of
stats are not
proves
pretty. The stats are not pretty here
yeah,
when it
that
comes
else
to
that
that.
that proves the point I was making, which is
Exactly.
when your quarterback throws over 50 times, unless you're Tom Brady, you lose. Like you
Yeah.
lose the game. But in this game, Hurts only threw 20 attempts. He was 202 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Saquon was 14 for 66. AJ Brown had over 100 yards, but I already talked about this game at length on Sunday's show. So if you want to listen to that, go listen to the solo Sunday show. But basically, the discussion I want to have, because obviously Eagles are going to the playoffs. Their seeding entirely depends on the 2 games against the Commanders. The first one coming up on Thursday, which we'll talk about Thursday. But then when it comes to the Cowboys casino, as much as you and I like to talk shit on Dak Prescott, when the Cowboys have anybody else at quarterback but Dak Prescott, they can't move the ball. I mean, Cooper
No,
Rush in
no.
this game,
Dak's a decent quarterback.
13 for 23, 45 yards. He completed 13 passes for 45 yards. And then Trey Lance comes in 4 for 6, 21 yards, and just an abysmal interception he threw into basically triple coverage. So,
Man, did the Niners luck out with his injury
yeah.
and got Purdy up there. Oh man.
I mean, the Cowboys, I made the case on Sunday. I think the Cowboys and Giants are the 2 worst teams in the entire league. I think you can really make that case.
Yeah,
Like,
Panthers are bad, bro.
but the
And
Panthers just beat the Giants.
the Panthers are bad. Okay, the Browns. Well,
Yeah,
then the
but
Browns just beat the Ravens, so
on the Browns, would you rather have Jameis Winston, Cooper Rush, Daniel Jones, or Bryce Young?
you're right. Jameis Winston.
Yeah. So I really think you can make the case that the Cowboys at 3-6 and the Giants, what, at 2-8, are the 2 worst teams in the
But I
league.
didn't know if you know this or not, but the Cowboys were going to win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, well, that was another thing. Like when we were doing the breakdown, yeah, Giants are 2-8. When we were doing the breakdowns at the beginning of the season, Cowboys, again, another team that was picked to win the NFC East, and it was like they're worse than any Dak or McCarthy team they've ever had. They have the worst running back room in the league. Outside of CeeDee Lamb, they might have the worst wide receiver group in the league. Their offensive line is not as good as it's been in the past, and their defense is just a bunch of stars at certain positions, but not any good depth pieces whatsoever. So, yeah, I mean, the only reason the Cowboys were potentially in this game for like a quarter and a half was Hurts did what annoys me the most about Hurts, which is he fumbled and had an interception within the span of like 5 minutes, which is the Hurts special, where he just decides to
Are you
throw
over
up.
him?
Huh? No, no. I still think because after that he played basically a perfect game. But the first quarter, I was like, "Oh no, please don't be another game. Please don't be another one of those games." But on the season, I mean, he has 12 passing touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 10 rushing touchdowns, and then 6 fumbles. Only 4 of them lost. So basically, he has what 22 touchdowns and 9 turnovers. So not bad. Not bad at all. And Hurts, again, when he gets all his pieces back and when he's actually uh not doing dumb shit, he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. Now let's move on to your second favorite team, Casino, the Commanders. And we mentioned it in the beginning. The Steelers win 28-27. The Steelers are now 7-2, Commanders 7-3. This game, however, ends on controversy. Do you think Ertz had the first down?
I do. I
I
think
did
he got
too.
because he caught it and the ball was across that line. He was clear he caught it. Um,
It
and
was
I
clear
thought
he
that
had forward momentum and all that kind of
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
yep. He had I thought that's how he always what's supposed to be is where the ball was caught at if forward progress was stopped. And yeah. Like, it's not like he caught it and then, like, he turned and tried to go, you know, and then he got stopped. And no, he caught it and immediately got stuck, but it should have been there. Like, again, I really think that the Commanders won this game, but good for the Steelers. They're still a good team.
Yeah, I made the case they might be the best team that nobody's talking about just because of how.
I think that's the Chargers.
I mean, that's a good point. I mean, Chargers and Steelers are within 2 of each other for total defense. So, right now, if it was just their offenses versus each other's defenses, I don't know who would win between the Chargers and Steelers. So that might be a good point. But yeah, when it comes to this game, obviously the refs now with social media, we can see every bad call they make every game, and shockingly enough, they make a lot of bad calls every game. None more than for the Chiefs, which is, of course, the number one talking point, Casino, is the
They can't. They can't.
and
They can't keep getting away with this. They can't keep getting away with this. So you're they just can't. I love that it's exclamation points and not question marks because it is 100% true. They can't.
You can't keep getting away with it.
I love it.
That's how everybody feels about the Chiefs. I mean,
I was gutted. I was gutted. I told you immediately as that happened, and I'm like, oh, my wife was reading her book, and the kids are playing in the living room, and I'm like, Britt, watch this, watch this. Like the Chiefs are going to go down. Like
you
they're
jinxed them.
they're not going to
You're
be.
the problem.
Oh, I'm the problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the problem. It's me. Yeah. See what
Mm.
I did there? Taylor Swift reference. Good. There it is. Um.
Ugh.
But seriously, I was like, I'm watching. I'm like, oh, here it goes, and then that happens. My wife instantly just giggles, and the restraint that I had to not just backhanding my wife. I would never do that, by the way. I would never backhand my wife ever. But like, there was a thought of like, oh, and I just look over and she's giggling and she just smiles at me and I'm just like, why? And she goes, why not the Chiefs? And I was like, you know why? I was just so done with it.
Yeah, this was, I mean, I don't even care about the Broncos. Obviously I don't like the Chiefs because we're the number one Chiefs haters.
So my GM is a Broncos fan, and I went into work
Ugh.
that night, right? And when I get in there, he's on the other side of the bar drinking a beer, talking to a regular, and he just looks, he's got his Broncos hat on, and he's not drunk by any means. Like he's just so depressed that he just has a beer in front of him. Like he's not beer. I think that was the only one that he had, but he's just sitting there with like a half drink beer in his hand, just looking off in the distance, and he's just like, "Hey Casey, welcome to work." And I was just like, "Oh, oh."
Uh,
I felt so bad for him
yeah, that's brutal.
because he's still trying to be a good GM, and be nice and play and see how I'm doing, but he was just gutted inside, and you could see it.
Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow, especially where you look at the kick and it's like every Broncos offensive lineman just felt like they either forgot to block or didn't know the play was happening. It was such a weird, I've never seen 50 people on defense be able to block a kick. Like I don't if
It
you
was
watch that play,
the whole group was
it
able to
just
stop it.
it just looked like they fell down, or it literally looks like they were frozen in time and forgot to stand up. Like it was, I mean, again, I'm not a Broncos fan. I don't like the Chiefs. I didn't really care who won this game, but obviously we're always rooting against the Chiefs on this podcast. What a gut punch. I felt gut punched. And I'm not even a Broncos fan. I can't imagine being a Broncos fan and losing a game to a division rival like this. Like this is, ugh. It's just, that's the only word for it. Just, ugh. And for anybody who is watching this on YouTube, if you see the YouTube thumbnail for this, it's Casino and I's face on a Chinatown, the final scene of Chinatown, where they say, you know, Jake, it's Chinatown. And the meaning of it in the movie is just like, no matter what this guy does, the town is corrupted and they can't stop the money and power. That's how I feel about the Chiefs. It's just this corrupting influence on the league that no matter how bad they play, no matter how bad Mahomes is, no matter how good the other team is, it's just they're inevitable. And I hate it. And I hate it. And I hate it. The Chiefs win 16-14. They're now 9-0. My next question was going to be, when do you think they lose? But you think they lose to the Bills next week?
All day. It's going to happen.
Also, apparently a lot of people think that because the line in that game keeps moving further and further favoring the Bills, which
All
always
day. It's going to happen.
uh but all right, Casino, are you ready to move on to our next
Oh yeah, because
discussion?
we've got a lot still to cover. Let's keep going.
So let's you know what, we'll just do more Tuesday talking points, but this time let's dive into college football, NBA, NHL, just to get those out of the way. Let's just move over right to football for this past weekend, week 11 in college football. I think or I watched the really good BYU Utah game, which I like. I'll tell you what,
In-state rival games are just so much fun to watch.
I'll tell you what, all these Saturday night college football games, either the early game or the late game, have just all been really good this year. Like one of the two of them are either great or one of them's great. And that one was really good. I also watched the Boise State Nevada game.
Which I can't believe Nevada came that close.
I know. Put up more of a fight than UNLV, Casino.
Shut up.
But the real talking points coming from this weekend are Ole Miss upsetting Georgia 28-10. And not only like they didn't beat them, they dominated them that entire game. Thoughts on Ole Miss beating Georgia and now just the SEC being in this weird spot where all the good teams have beaten each other. Like it's so weird.
Yeah, and then it's where does everybody fit in this 12-team bracket? I mean, you've talked about it, especially with all the teams beating each other now, that it just seems like it's just going to be the SEC like conference pretty much just in there.
Yeah.
I mean, go for it.
Right now at the top is Tennessee. They're 8-1. Then it's Texas A&M 7-2. Then it's Texas 8-1. Then it's Georgia 7-2. Ole Miss 8-2. Alabama, Missouri 7-2, 7-2. And then you have the 3-loss SEC teams being LSU and South Carolina. So you can make a legitimate case right now for what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for the SEC having 9 of the best teams in the nation. So, like you just said, where do they fit
I mean, that's
in a
true,
12-team playoffs?
It's true, but with that being said, I think the two best teams in this league are definitely going to be Oregon and Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State was just seconds away, like a half a second away from being the undefeated team and, being on the other side of Oregon right there. So I'm glad they got that right. I want to keep seeing like Indiana keep moving forward. I want to see BYU keep moving forward. I just want to keep seeing the teams that aren't going to be in that division. I want to see them just pull off as many of those at-large bids as possible. Like I'm fine with the SEC just kicking the shit out of each other because you can't justify them going in, if they have three losses. I think if you have 3 losses, you're done.
Yeah, I would agree. And then, for the 2-loss teams, I think because again, Georgia beat Texas, so the argument would be, oh well, Texas can still get in over Georgia because Georgia has 1 more loss. But then the issues become, what if all of a sudden Texas loses? What if it's all just 2-loss SEC teams and all those losses are just from playing each other? Then that's where you become like, oh, well, who in the SEC do I put over the other one when they all have 2 losses and the 2 losses are
no idea. Just keep them all out.
Yeah. I mean, I would be fine with that. But right now, the last undefeated teams in the top 25 are 4 teams. Nobody, if you could have given somebody $1 million to guess these correctly, nobody ever would have come close. Oregon, Indiana, BYU, and Army are the last undefeated teams in the top 25. That is a insane list to be those 4. I think Indiana's really good. I like watching them. Oregon uh gives me hesitation because how many times have we seen a really good Oregon team just lose in a bowl game, in a Pac-12 championship game? I feel like, or a big game, because again, we made that prediction Oregon would lose when they played who was it earlier in the season? Their big game. It was
Don't
I will
remember.
find it up right now. It was Michigan, or no, not Michigan. When they played, why am I blanking on this? Oh, when they played Ohio State
There
and
it
they
is.
ended up winning by 1 point.
Oh yeah, that's what we're talking about. The
Yeah.
slide.
Yeah. So Ohio State and Oregon, again, we've already seen and Oregon won by 1 point. So it does feel like those are the 2 best teams in the nation. But again, Texas was originally the best team and then they slid a little and now they're back up at 3. I don't know. I don't like Penn State. I just don't like watching Penn State. But Indiana, Tennessee, I've fallen in and out of love with 5 million times during this season. So I don't know who of the SEC teams, which ones do you think end up making it in the playoffs, Casino?
Oh shit. I would have to pull up all the SEC and go through there. Who do you think it is? I'll pull that up.
Well, here, I'll just say a team and you say yes or no. Tennessee.
Yes.
I agree, yes. Texas A&M.
Yes.
See, I'm going to say no with Texas A&M, even though I really like Texas A&M. And I thought at one point they were the best SEC team. Texas.
Yes.
I think Texas gets in as well. Georgia.
No.
Ooh, that's interesting. See, I think the only ones that get in are Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, and potentially Ole Miss. I know they're going to try. I wouldn't be mad if Texas A&M got in. I feel like I would be furious if Alabama got in. But
everybody would be furious. I mean, no, that loss to Vanderbilt ended their season.
So you think there's 0% chance they get into the 12 team?
I do.
Ooh, I hope you're right. But anything else to talk about in college football, or can we move on?
We can move on.
So what is going on, Casino, in the NHL?
NHL, still really early on in the season. But as of today, the NHL just the NHL themselves, they just hired Ken Holland. If you know hockey, you would know his name. To NHL hockey operations, which is awesome. He had a 27-year career as an NHL general manager. He's won 4 Stanley Cup rings, 2 Olympic gold medals for Canada, and he was he was put into the Hockey Hall of Fame back in 2020. So really cool. He's now a part of the operations department as a consultant. I just think that's pretty cool, pretty neat. Great resume, great career. We'll see what he does with that moving forward. Yeah, really not too much. The teams that we're talking about being good are good, and the teams that aren't that good aren't that good. Really not too much about it. Teams like, let's say, the Predators, teams that really made big splashes in the offseason, they're still trying to get their pieces worked out together. It takes time for chemistry to happen. So not too much in the NHL right now. There's a long season to go, but we will revisit that, and we'll probably really get into NHL once they hit the All-Star break, halfway through season, and then I think I'll be able to have a lot more for the NHL for you.
Yeah. And then as far as the NBA right now, the 2 big stories, obviously we're recording this Tuesday at about 2:30. So in about 2 hours, our time, the Sixers and Knicks will play in the in-season tournament, and that will be the first game for Joel Embiid since coming back from injury, and then he was suspended those 2 games. And dear God, do my Sixers need him? They are 2-7 and 12th right now in the East. The other concerning news in the East is the Bucks still sitting at 2-8, which is insane to me that both the Sixers and the Bucks are near the bottom of the league instead of the top. And then, however, the last news in the East is that the Cavaliers still 12-0. They had a scare against the Nets and Bulls the past 2 couple games that could have beat them, and then they barely won against that same Bucks team on Monday. So, yeah, Cavaliers still undefeated. And then last news is the West Coast game tonight is the Dallas Mavericks with Klay Thompson going and playing against the Golden State Warriors. So Klay Thompson will be playing his first game against his former team where he was with the Splash Brothers and all that kind of stuff tonight. So
Splash Brothers.
so
That's just fun to say.
early, so early, important or relevant games in the NBA are starting tonight. And so far, the NBA has been pretty crazy on the East, the Eastern Conference, with obviously the Sixers and the Bucks, and then the Cavaliers being on top. But the West is pretty much what everybody thought, except for that Mavericks team coming off the finals appearance is 5-5. So yeah, but up at the top, Thunders, Suns, Warriors, Nuggets, kind of what everybody predicted. And yeah, Grizzlies, Lakers in the mix. So good NBA season so far. Very unpredictable in the East. West less so. But uh we're not even going to have time to do our last segment, Casino. So we will instead.
What was the last segment?
Well, the last segment is a surprise, but our segment.
Our surprise that we've been having a surprise forever.
Yeah, that we just always run out of time for. But our last topic today, Casino, is we're doing the Tuesday talking points. Now it's time to do the topical Tuesday topic, which suntan lotion is topical, Casino, because you put it on your skin. So there's Casino getting his little bathing suit pulled down by a dog for
God,
anybody
I wish I had
listening.
that kind of a tan though. I'm so white, dude.
Yeah, that's why I knew you would love this image. But the Tuesday topical, or the topical Tuesday topic, Casino, is this Friday. They are doing a Netflix, and by they I mean Netflix, are doing a live boxing showcase that if you look at the Notify Me on Netflix, it says it's going to be a 5-hour event, which is very shocking to me because the only fight people want to see on this is Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, where Jake Paul continues.
I thought this wasn't going to happen.
Well, it originally wasn't going to happen, and then I don't know, some things got moved around, and now it is happening. I've been seeing promos and these two going around to everyone. What do you think happens in this fight?
I think Mike Tyson kills him.
I think that's the hope. I think everybody is hoping that Mike Tyson just absolutely wipes the floor with him. But yeah, I guess this is just so weird. It's like,
because here's the thing, regardless on if Tyson has, lost some of his step or lost some of his power, obviously being older, like that's going to be a thing. But the knowledge of boxing so favors Mike Tyson that even with Jake Paul being younger and more maybe aloof and able to dodge a little bit, but I don't think it's going to matter when you're playing somebody like to that caliber. Like I'm sure Tom Brady could go on half of those NFL teams right now, if not more, and be the best quarterback on that team, and it's his knowledge. It's his knowledge of the game. It's his knowledge of how he can, regardless if he's got the arm or not.
Yeah. It's also, so looking at this, Jake Paul is 31, and Mike Tyson is 58. So you were correct. The first fight was postponed due to an ulcer flare-up that left Tyson dizzy on a plane. So now this boxing match is taking place officially this Friday in AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, where the Cowboys play. It'll be at night, so none of the
It'll
boxers
be
will
the
have
most
to.
excitement that stadium's seen all year.
Well, it'll also be a night boxing match, so neither Jake Paul or Mike Tyson have to worry about being blinded by the sun. But Mike Tyson, he has not boxed since, I just had it here. He has not boxed since 2005 uh, after suffering a stoppage defeat to Kevin McBride. So he has not fought in almost 20 years.
That's fine. Okay. But he still boxes to condition. He still does sparring. He hasn't had professional match in that long, but he is still out there in boxing gyms. He's around the sport. He still spars. Like, he's doing that. That's how he stays active. That's how he stays fit. So it's not like he's been sitting on the couch and not doing any of this. He's not his reflexes as of age and everything have probably gotten slower, but he's still in there hitting the bag. He's still practicing steps, because that's what he does to stay fit. That's his workout regimen. So
Yeah.
he hasn't had a professional fight, and I'm not going to even call this a professional fight. This is not a professional fight. So
no, it's an exhibition, quote unquote. But I mean, they do have a legit. Looking at the boxing card, they have legit boxing matches all down the card, except for most of them are for titles, except for this one, which is obviously an exhibition match. I think Jake Paul wins, and I think this match is going to be.
That's what's gonna happen. But
It's going to be. I think it's going to be insanely boring. Yes, I will watch it. I
how
think
many
it's.
times? Over or under 20 times a hug?
Oh, I think it's going to be. This is going to be what everybody hates about Floyd Mayweather matches, which is just defensive boxing, a lot of hugging, a lot of, having to be separated by the refs. I think this is the definition of
So what
for.
round do you think
I
it
think it
goes
goes.
to? And then
I think
Jake
it goes
Paul.
the distance, and
Okay, and
Jake
then
Paul wins by decision.
I
Yeah.
gotcha. Well, I was gonna say, how many rounds do you think it goes before Jake Paul whispers in his ear and says, "Hey, take this punch"?
Oh, I mean, if that's the case, and this is just for money, then I guess good for Mike Tyson. Bad for Jake Paul, who the whole thing against his quote unquote boxing career has been that he hasn't actually boxed any boxers, which is weird to call yourself a professional boxer, but never actually fight anyone who is a relevant name in boxing. But
His
because
brother actually fights real boxers, right?
well, his brother is in the WWE. His brother's a professional wrestler.
Oh,
I,
I thought he was staying to the boxing.
I don't really follow either of the Paul brothers casino,
Who
but
does?
yeah, but again, this is just Jake. This is all publicity, not real, like quote unquote sport. And I think the world's going to be rooting for Mike Tyson, but Jake Paul wouldn't make this match for this amount of money if he knew he wasn't going to win it. So I think that's what happens. However,
Or he loses and then he plays it as, well, I'm going against Mike Tyson. He's one of the greatest boxers to ever live. I respect that man. We're just friends, through and through after this.
that's what I was just going to say.
And he goes and he humbles himself.
Well,
Because
if Mike Tyson knocks out Jake Paul, I mean, that's the end of his boxing career, right? And how can you come back from getting knocked out by?
No, and then maybe now you can go focus on something else. Maybe this is all a ploy to end his boxing career.
Oh, one can hope. One can hope. But on that note, Casino, this is the end. If I can find that, I don't even know if I have that one that says the end. Did I get rid of the one that says the end? I might have. But this is the end right here, Casino, of the podcast. Anything else you want to say before we head out of here?
No. Good enough.
Yeah, we'll see you on Thursday where we will make our predictions for I believe it's week 11 in the NFL. And then we will also do Casino's Corner on Thursday and some other things I'm forgetting at the moment. Or week going into week 11.
The surprise that we always never get to.
Well, the surprise on this one, we literally just ran out of time. I make these segments like the Tuesday talking points to make the segment shorter, and then we end up going the same length. So I don't know how to do this. But this has been the Only Sports Podcast. I'm Will. That's Casino over there. We'll see you Thursday.
Have a good one.